Hey guys, welcome back to Young Americans Abroad, your best place for weekly content on young American soccer players playing overseas. My name is Austin Van Schuren.
My name is Patrick Ferry.
And guys, welcome to our show. Well, guys, we're back this week, and Pat, it wasn't maybe the best week we've seen from American players abroad, but nonetheless, we have a lot to talk about today.
That's right, Austin. I know some players in England and some other leagues able to get some starts and play some minutes, but again, not the constant excitement that we've had and been fortunate to have in the past few episodes here.
Yeah, but Pat, the rumor mill is churning. It is summertime, and a lot of transfers are going to occur this summer. I think the window opens July 13th for most leagues. So we'll see what happens. And today we're going to talk about some of those rumors.
That's right, Austin. It's very that unprecedented time where there's these transfer rumors going on and also games. It's so exciting too because you get to talk about both. So. Some players making moves while games going on and seasons finishing. So again, there's been plenty of Americans, linked to top level clubs recently. So really excited to dive into that topic.
And then we're also want to talk about an American in Turkey, who finally got on the score sheet this weekend for his club after a long wait, Pat.
And an American, Austin, in England grabs another start, but the team unfortunately fell short in a pretty tough loss. But all that and more in this week's episode. All right, guys, so we're going to start over with that player in England, and that is Christian Pulisic. Started and played 66 minutes in Chelsea's very tough loss, 3-0 to Sheffield United. So, really unfortunate just the way that Chelsea's been playing, and Christian... he was taken off in the 66th, like I mentioned, for Olivier Giroud, who came in. And just to kind of highlight some moments there, Christian looked a little fatigued, I would say, overall. And that's kind of expected with all these games happening and with minimal rest, and they're trying to finish the season here quickly. But I think it was one of the right wing backs there for Sheffield where George Baldock kind of roughed him up with got a yellow on it. And kind of found Christian more drifting into the midfield centrally, not taking one-on-one on the outside and the flanks there. But again, Chelsea just looked a little slow as a whole, and the spacing wasn't there. I know kind of Mount and Pulisic were intercepting some other players as well. Just seemed a little lethargic, and again, you could tell with some of the lack of rotation there for Lampard's teams. But yeah, Austin, I mean, overall, just not good by Chelsea, and their defense was abysmal. Just kind of terrible, to be honest. Put it bluntly, but just making these really silly mistakes and just the lack of concentration and focus, really hurt them. So Sheffield really got them on the counters. Chelsea were able to possess overall in the game. Not great, but had more percentage. And again, those counters they just got hit on and took their foot off the gas, and it really ended with a pretty brutal loss.
Yeah, and you make a good point about Pulisic looking lethargic. I don't know if he looks super lethargic, but it is important to mention that he's played, I think it's 6 games in 17 days or something like that, something crazy. So a lot of that game time's got to be taking a toll on his legs. So I think that played a part for Chelsea in this game as a whole. But I think overall, I think just Chelsea kind of got the tactics wrong. And I'm going to go into it, Pat, maybe a little bit more than I should. But I think from the start they should have played Olivier Giroud instead of Tammy Abraham, just because recently Olivier's been playing with Pulisic, with Willian up front, and he's really been doing a good job connecting. Christian's been really finding ways to make those back post runs and kind of get into the box off of, what Olivier is doing, just bringing defenders with him and kind of being a focal point in the box. And that's just not something Tammy Abraham has really shown so far in his career. He's more of a, pressing striker at the moment, someone who doesn't do the best holding up the ball and combining with those forwards up front, or those wingers up front. So I think that was kind of where Frank got it wrong a little bit. And then he tried to change things. At halftime, I think he brought on who was it again? He kind of changed his system. He literally took off Mason Mount and I think a defender and kind of went to three back. Which at the time seemed to give them a little life. But then when they took Christian off in, what was it, the 66th minute, they put Olivier on and played kind of a two-striker system, which is something they're just, they haven't really done that much this season. So it just seemed like they kind of got their moves wrong. And, Sheffield went on to win 3-0. So I think it's pretty safe to say that they got their moves wrong. But I just think that Christian would have done a little bit better if Olivier Giroud started this game. And I think that's something to watch maybe for their next game this week. I think they play Norwich. So, Norwich is already relegated, probably not the toughest opposition they'll play this season. So, maybe it's not going to matter. Maybe whoever they put on the field, they're going to beat Norwich. But, I think they got a big game coming up this weekend too, Pat, against Man United in the FA Cup. So, maybe that's something to watch for that game.
Yeah, that's right, Austin. And again, maybe and Norwich is actually tomorrow, but we're filming this on a Monday. But
right.
Again, I think like you said, just maybe that's a good chance for Pulisic and Chelsea and the team to kind of pick up that confidence before, like you said, that intense FA match against Manchester United. So really exciting times as Chelsea close off the season. They're still in third, Austin. Because Leicester had a pretty brutal loss.
Yeah.
And then I know you mentioned Man United drew, I believe.
Yeah, they drew to Southampton today on the day of recording, 2-2.
Right.
So it was a good week for Chelsea to lose 3-0.
Right. Yeah. Right. Good week. But again, just for this game specifically, if we're talking about, Pulisic. I mean, again, I don't think, like you said, just the game and the formation, just things weren't right. The tactics weren't right. And so sometimes that causes players maybe to not play. Not every game's the same. So you could say, oh, Pulisic needs to attack 1v1 and get on the wing there and the flanks a little more. But, every game has different elements and different teams and tactics. So, there must have been kind of a reason where he's had to drop in a little bit more deeper to get the ball and move centrally. So I know, like you said, I think centrally they weren't stringing some passes very well and kind of getting clogged up there and losing it. So, I just think, you're not going to have that A+ game every time where, we've been highlighting, especially with Pulisic, even before, I think it was against Palace and just even in the past games here, just pure domination. So he'll get it back on track.
Yeah, and I think you got to give Sheffield credit too, because Sheffield, kind of took it to Pulisic early in the game, like you said, fouling him, and they just played really compact and really, they were really on the same page with each other. So, it's going to make it tough for any team that goes up against them. So, yeah.
yeah, like you said, Austin, just want to quickly mention too, it's interesting. I feel like, again, Pulisic's really just made his presence known, and I think for this next year, we're going to see even more I don't want to make the comparisons, but Eden Hazard fouls on him. So I'm just hoping he can stay physically healthy through that. And he's going to definitely receive more attention as we go on.
Yeah, for sure. That's a good point. So, I guess that's all for Christian today. Like I said, he's got a big week coming up. Hopefully he plays in both games for Chelsea coming up. So now let's move over to Turkey and talk Tyler Boyd. So this is a player we really haven't talked about much this season, Pat. And to be fair, there really just hasn't been too much to talk about him.
Right.
So, we'll start today by saying that, he played 90 minutes in Besiktas's most recent game and scored a goal in their 3-2 win. So, like I alluded to earlier in the episode, this was actually his first league goal of the season. So, it's good to see. We're already in, I guess in a COVID world, we're in July, so this was I guess, but good to see him get on the score sheet. So I don't want to take anything away from that. But looking at his season as a whole, he's played just over 1,200 minutes in the Europa League, which they're in this season, and also the Turkish League. So you'd hope that those minutes would be a little higher since they're in multiple competitions, but unfortunately that's not the case. And yeah, it's just been kind of not the, I guess the best start to life at Besiktas for him. He's kind of found playing time hard to come by at times. He's been in and out of the starting lineup, but mostly used as a sub. And we kind of have seen in the past the exciting play that he can bring at times. But it's still just that consistency that he's lacking. And that's something that, we're hoping moving to a club like Besiktas and, a team that's playing in the Europa League, fantastic, competition to play in. That would be, another opportunity for him to become a more consistent player and kind of take his game to the next level. But unfortunately, that just, hasn't really been the case this season, Pat.
Yeah, like you said, the consistency is key. I know it's a pretty generic term there, phrase, but yeah, just with Tyler Boyd and what we've kind of seen with the U.S. and then his moves and just covering him even before his big move to Besiktas in Turkey, but he just is a player I think that really thrives on confidence, and just when he has these moments where he's really excited and scores some goals, and you can see the energy, with him and just flowing through his game, where maybe some games he doesn't score, gets taken off, things like that. It just seems to kind of damage his confidence a little bit and kind of gets into a rut. So, like you said, just kind of working on those, because he is a very good, I think he's carved out a really good niche as coming on as maybe for the US or down the road, for some important games, kind of coming on and providing that energy, that burst of energy and that creativity to make some daring calls where he's moving one-on-one and taking players on. So I still think he has a chance to kind of make more of an impact, whether it is at a Besiktas club or another club elsewhere.
Yeah, all really good points. Besiktas is no slouch of a club. This is a club that right now is in 4th in the Turkish league. The Turkish league obviously is not the highest level of competition. We're not going to sit here and say it is, but playing in the Europa League is a big deal. Like that's something that we should be proud of Tyler for accomplishing and kind of challenging himself to. So, like you said, Pat, we'll see what the future holds. I think going forward with the USMNT, playing time is just going to be harder to come by for him. With players like Christian Pulisic, Gio Reyna, who's been playing a lot on the wing for Dortmund. Julianes, who obviously want to see a lot more of, Timaya, who hasn't been healthy for a better part of a year.
Right.
So, all those players kind of, in my opinion, are going to be players he's going to be fighting for playing time with. So, it's going to put the onus on him to kind of, if he's not getting the playing time he needs, and if he's not getting the, opportunities to improve his game and become that better player, then it might, force his hand a little bit and try and, move away from Besiktas, whether that's on loan or a transfer, to get that, more consistent playing time. So, I guess, we'll see what happens with him. But, it's good to see him score this week. So, hey, that's something to be happy about. That's one player who scored this week.
Yeah, that's right, Austin. It's some positive impact, and maybe this will be the kind of the reignite him and propel him at the end here. So we'll kind of have to monitor that. But yeah, again, that's a player, like I mentioned, that thrives on the confidence, and maybe this goal scoring form will pick up here.
True. Yeah, good point. So now we want to move over to a little bit of a different segment in our show today, and we're going to talk transfers. So Pat, starting off, we're gonna go to the Bundesliga, and we're going to talk about a player we're all really excited about, and that's Chris Richards. So, we've documented a lot of the clubs and potential moves that Chris Richards could, take this year after kind of breaking through for Bayern, or at least, getting consistent playing time for their 2 team, winning the championship in the 3 Liga, and then also making his Bayern debut this year and Bundesliga debut. So, what came out recently this week is officially an unnamed Bundesliga club is actually, interested in bringing him in on loan. So, that's something that we really haven't heard. We've heard a lot of clubs, kind of rumored, but nothing concrete. So I thought it was really cool to hear that. And, obviously just go into a little bit, some of the other clubs that were mentioned. And I don't know the validity of this ever happening, but some of the other clubs are Chelsea, Valencia, Arsenal is rumored to be interested in him. So, he definitely has a lot of eyes on him. But Pat, we're still in the mindset that, staying in Germany and hopefully getting a move to the Bundesliga would be kind of the best move for him going forward.
Yeah, I think so. And I know I wouldn't want it to turn into a situation where maybe you see some, I guess an example would be EPB or some other players going to, like a Man City or some of those top clubs, and then just kind of being thrown into that loan spiraling. Loan army, yeah. So, I mean, again, like you said, the Bundesliga does seem to make sense, or, not knocking his, the interest here in his ability, but maybe even the two Bundesliga where he can, really develop and grind in some games, just because I know you mentioned and touched on it a lot, but just the way that Bayern 2 is playing might not necessarily be the same as a low-level Bundesliga club in terms of his position and having to defend a little bit more.
Yeah, and I think that would be the big distinction. So, in the 3 Liga this year, Bayern 2 kind of dominated possession in pretty much every game they played. He played a very high line, in all their games, and was really tasked with just, he was almost tasked with playing possession more than he was defending. So I think, whatever club he goes to, it's going to be a lot different of an environment, which makes sense, but it's also just going to be a lot different of a role he's going to have to play on that team. So, I think that's just something to be kind of cognizant of. And, hopefully he goes to a club that will allow him to kind of get some of these kinks out early, because I do think there'll be kind of that learning process that he's going to have to go through. But, taking a look at some of these clubs that he could go to in the Bundesliga, and this is just off of, pure personal opinion here, Pat. This isn't any insider knowledge or anything, but some teams that kind of stood out to me that had some needs at center back and could be good spots for him to, hone his skills a little bit. The first one is Union Berlin. So obviously Union Berlin were just promoted last year, did a good job, finished in, I believe it was 12th this year in the Bundesliga. And, just they're a team that really fights. They have, good defensive principles. So I think, if he can go to a club that kind of instills that defensive ideology into him, I think that's going to be something that may help him down the road. The other club that, is really interesting too is Stuttgart. So Stuttgart was just promoted from the two Bundesliga this year.
Right.
So, they're a big club. They've kind of bounced back and forth between the two Bundesliga and the Bundesliga over the past few years, but they have the finances of a Bundesliga club, and they also have an American manager in Pellegrino Materazzi. So
New Jersey.
Yeah, for sure. He's a Jersey guy. So I think that fit would be really interesting. Obviously, it'd be nice to have a head coach that's also the same nationality as you. I feel like that would help in getting your foot in the door a little bit more. And like I said, if he doesn't impress right from the start, or if there's some kinks that he's got to work out and some mistakes that he makes early on, it might give him some more time to kind of show the coach, he's able to do the job, later on in the season and going forward. So I think it's a team that has some needs at the moment. Finances are obviously very tight, but like I said, Stuttgart's still a pretty big club. So, I think that move would be interesting. And then, pipe dream maybe, and I don't even want to say a pipe dream because I don't know if it'd be the best position for Chris going into it, but, a team that's losing some center backs on loan and hasn't done the best recently is Werder Bremen. So, Werder Bremen have some aging defenders. Omer Toprak and Kevin Vogt were on loan to them this season. Both pretty much played whenever they were healthy. So losing them is going to be a big loss to Bremen. So maybe they try and go a little bit younger and, freshen that back line up a little bit and take a look at Chris Richards because their finances are going to be tight too.
So it seems to be all about finances right now in this COVID era, Austin.
Do you blame them?
No.
It's it's going to be tough for everyone. So, what are your thoughts, Pat? I know I just threw a lot of names and information out there, and want to get your.
Yeah, I mean, I think Stuttgart and Bremen are teams that are kind of intriguing and interesting to me. Just with their current situations, and obviously with Stuttgart, like you mentioned, with the manager having that connection or that network. But yeah, I mean, I guess ultimately want Chris to go somewhere, and what you've kind of talked about, some of these clubs where somewhere where they really maybe are kind of thin at some of the positions and defenders and center backs, and he can kind of come in, not be completely bombarded where the team has absolutely. I guess my other concern too is just thinking from the other side with Bremen, or some teams are not really having any offensive productivity and just being completely bombarded on defense. So it'd be nice to see him go to a more stable line, but again, obviously it's not like going to a Bayern or Leverkusen or things like that, but also not a team that's being bombarded with 3-4 plus goal losses.
Yeah, that's the thing with Bremen. As tantalizing as it would be to see two Americans playing on the same team in the Bundesliga, yeah, it's not probably the best defensive situation to walk into.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't know if I have a good answer, but I kind of like the Stuttgart link. We'll see what happens. I think they've been linked to Arsenal's center back, Mavropanos, the Greek defender. So it kind of takes away that option for him. But I think the American connection there, head coach to center back, would be pretty cool too. So yeah, that's just kind of our take on the transfer rumors right now. Just want to keep you guys updated. And we got another few players we want to talk about. So should we move on, Pat?
Yeah, I'd be excited to talk about some more transfer rumors, and this has been kind of brought up a little more in a few times with Antonee Robinson, Austin. So the left back has really just had a great resurgence in terms of recovering from some really tough injuries and some setbacks, and kind of moving on loan here and there throughout the championship. And obviously with this time, at Everton being cut. So it's nice to kind of see him revitalize Antonee and really just kind of maturing and growing as a defender and player. So obviously some of those teams that have been linked in the past, we've talked about Leicester City, which is really intriguing. I think it's one of our, at least my one of my top personal favorites, as well as I believe I think it's West Brom, and now even more so West Ham, which has been new and intriguing. So it'll be interesting to see David Moyes. He's a manager with a lot of experience at different clubs, especially with this time going on, but as well as Wigan just as a whole collapsing financially. So they could pick up Antonee for a cut price, pretty cheap. So yeah, I mean, again, even AC Milan has been linked back, Austin. There's been a few reports, and I was looking on Twitter about that. Personally, I want to get your take on it, but I just don't want to see him, although it would be neat because AC Milan's history, and you have to love Milan and from their past teams, but right now it's just not a stable situation for him. Especially not only at the position with some competition, but just in general with the club and maybe the owner's kind of vision and strategy going on. So I just don't think that's the right move. And maybe even I think a Leicester, if West Brom goes up there, those would be really intriguing moves to me. And I think it'd be great to Antonee.
Yeah, I personally am kind of in the same mind as you. Milan doesn't really excite me that much, well, maybe I shouldn't say that, but I just am concerned about, his playing time if he goes there. Yeah, I guess it is the most exciting move out of them all, maybe looking at it a little bit more.
Right.
Yeah, I think, the two moves that make the most sense to me would be West Brom and Leicester City. And Leicester City would make the most sense if Ben Chilwell, is sold this summer.
Sure.
I think he's a player that's going to start, every game he's fit. So, if he's there, then that would definitely make playing time for Antonee hard to come by. But if he's sold this summer, then that kind of leaves them with a big question mark. So, I think, either of those clubs, West Brom kind of the same deal, although just not as high of a quality of club. But I think they would have an opening for him at left back. So those are kind of my two teams I'm earmarking Antonee for. I guess we'll see what happens.
Yeah. I guess, again, like you said, we'll kind of have to stay tuned and keep posted. But Yeah, it's just intriguing. It's another player that's very young, and just want to go somewhere where they're able to develop and grow, make a few mistakes, but also, you know, not kind of. I feel like he's almost hit this level, and we've seen it at the championship where, he just needs to be challenged more, I guess, and again, just playing at some of these teams on loans he's been with have been towards kind of the bottom of the table. So it'd be an intriguing change to see him, at a whole another league up, and then at a team that really has some aspirations at staying at the top. So, I think if he just stays healthy, fingers crossed, and kind of works on, like we've talked about, the areas of just kind of maybe some of those flaws that Yedlin has had, just really working on some of the marking and making sure defensive positions are good. As we know him going forward, has been pretty solid. He has a really strong place, I think, as a modern fullback, especially in the Premier League.
Yeah, that's all good points. I feel like there's something else we should bring up too before we move on to the next player.
That's right. How could I forget, Austin? Yeah, over the weekend here too, it was a pretty brutal and vicious tackle. I think somebody actually referred to it as hilarious on Twitter as a CONCACAF tackle. So you could see Antonee's really preparing. Came in almost rugby style. Surprised he got away with a yellow card, honestly, Austin. The player went down in a heap, kind of flipped him over.
We'll try to add it to this video too. Hopefully it doesn't.
Yeah, right. Fingers crossed. But it was a pretty brutal takedown. It was kind of funny because he did put his arms up in the air, like, "Oh, what did I do?" But you pretty much demolished the player. So he has some fight in him, Austin. So we've seen that with a few American defenders.
Yeah, that's true. Better and worse. So I don't know. I think flipping a player is a little bit better than slapping a player. So.
Yeah.
But so I guess we'll move on to our next player, Pat, and it's someone we've talked a lot about, so we won't labor the points too much. But that would be Weston McKennie. So the big news this week is that Liverpool, Pat, is actually in for Weston McKennie, or at least reportedly in for Weston McKennie. So, what do you think about that, Pat? Does Liverpool make sense for you?
Yeah, as a Liverpool fan, Austin, a fan, I personally don't really, and this is not a knock to Weston, I just don't see it right now in terms of him getting consistent playing time and where he needs to be with his club and national team there, his career, where he just, I feel like there's just a lot of competition in that team, that squad. And again, I think it'd be great to see him under Klopp, and he would have been great as the first year or two when Klopp kind of took over Liverpool. When Lallana and some of those players who are good players but just aren't getting any minutes right now, we're starting. So again, just right now, I don't think that's the best club. And I know you have some other ones, and we've talked about on the show before, that seem to make more sense.
Yeah, I think, you kind of said it well. I think Liverpool's just, it would be cool to see. And I'm sure there'd be a lot of, good challenges in practice, and I'm sure he'd get game time. It's just consistent game time would be hard to come by. So maybe it would challenge him and just raise his level of play. But I think a player at his age really just needs to be on the field and be on the field consistently. So, I just think other moves make more sense. And kind of like you said, Pat, moves we've talked about in the past are Leicester City. And these are all teams that are interested in him. Leicester City, Everton. People have said Hertha Berlin, which I personally am not as on board with as other people.
I agree with you.
They're an interesting team. They recently have gotten a big cash infusion, and they're supposed to be a team that's going to challenge for places higher up in the Bundesliga now, more consistently. But until that happens, I don't know. I'm not sold on them just yet. They finished 10th in the Bundesliga this year, so they're going to miss out on Europa League or even Champions League going forward next year. So
Right.
It's going to be at least a year for them to get in there, and then there's no telling that they're going to make either of those competitions next year, because the Bundesliga is very competitive at the top, and it takes a good amount of squad depth to really get into that Leverkusen, Gladbach, Dortmund, Leipzig, and even Bayern, it's going to take a long time for Hertha to even compare to Bayern. So yeah, I don't know. I think Berlin's got a lot of challenges that they're going to have to overcome. So I think if Weston is okay with that and kind of sees that as a long-term plan, then maybe it'll work. But I just think he can challenge himself to a higher level right now. And I think, personally, Pat, I think a team like Leicester would be his best move. A team that looks like they're going to in a Champions League, maybe, or at least Europa League position, if they don't continue to lose to who is it, Bournemouth or something?
Yeah, something like that. It was pretty brutal. But I couldn't agree with you more, Austin.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, yeah, like you said with Leicester and just some of the players like Ndidi and some of those other young players coming through, and just the way they play, especially in the midfield, and they do have Vardy and some good attack, but just being able to kind of snuff out possession, shielding, and just tackling. I feel like he would be a very interesting fit, and I think he could really mesh well with some of those other midfielders.
Yeah, and it would be a team where he wouldn't probably be the focal point. And I say that to say that, he's been the focal point now at Schalke for this season. I think that's, Suat Serdar was kind of the other player who was a real focal point in their midfield, but he played half the season without him. And especially at the end of the season, he was really the key to what Schalke were doing. So I think he's played that role. And I think now he's got to kind of get into a team that has, some higher quality players. Like you said, Jamie Vardy, Yuri Tielemans is a fantastic player. Wilfred Ndidi, like you said, also fantastic midfielder. So if he can kind of get into a spot where he's learning from some of these other players and just kind of challenging himself each day to kind of raise his game to the next level, I think that would be, the best spot for him. So we can say, I think he's going to move from Schalke. I think that's pretty well established at this point. I know Schalke aren't saying that, but I think Weston's made it pretty clear in several interviews he said where, he stated his interest in the Premier League, and that's kind of where he wants to go next. And it just seems like he's kind of looking to move on. So I guess we'll have to see where he goes, Pat.
Yeah, a lot to monitor. I know it's exciting, and he's had that start at Schalke, and it's been great. But yeah, I think the sky's the limit still for him to keep making moves, Austin. So I guess just want to shift to a player we haven't talked about in a very long time. My boy, kind of the almost like the I'm trying to even think, like the undiscovered and kind of hidden talent here in goalkeepers with Ethan Horvath. So really just kind of under the radar is really what I was looking for. So again, he's had an interesting situation with Bruges where the contract is almost up, and Bruges is offering a new contract, and he seems to be considering. But there are also a pair of other U20 goalkeepers in the mix there, looking for promotion to that first team, along with Mignolet. So maybe they want some of those younger players up at the number 2. It's a very interesting situation, and I think Austin personally, with some of these unnamed Bundesliga clubs being linked, or a Bundesliga team, would be a better move, or for him to just kind of shift leagues and kind of get a fresh start anew. Because as I stated, Austin, we covered his time here before Simon kind of came and took over the job. He had a good resurgence where he fell out for a period of time, but he's been there a few years. He's won some titles, and has put some good time in Bruges. And it's kind of an unfortunate shame. Mignolet is a good veteran, a great keeper. Great to be a number 2 to him, but it's time for Horvath at this crucial age to branch out and be a starter at a top club.
Yeah, and with reports this week coming out that Zach Steffen will probably stay at Man City, it's kind of his opportunity, if he really wanted one, to make a run for a World Cup spot coming up here in 2022. I think, like you said, Pat, he's someone that was playing really well before Mignolet came in, and if he gets on the field, I think he's gonna impress people. It's all about finding that right spot. So yeah, I hope he moves. I really think he's someone who, like you said, has flown under the radar, and is someone that could be a consistent USMNT call up if he just gets back into a good club situation.
Yeah, and it's interesting too that you note Steffen and some of the other situations. It's very, I would almost say, just unique to the goalkeeper crop that the U.S. has generally had. So kind of intriguing to see how it all plays out with some of these top keepers in Horvath and Stefan. And again, I still think Stefan has been the clear choice, but to kind of get Horvath back into starting, get him back into the radar and spotlight, he could be a really good number 2 or 3.
Yeah, I was gonna say Stefan isn't the clear number 1 according to Stu Holden, but
yeah, that's a whole nother can of worms there.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think he's someone that in good form, or maybe not even in good form, just consistent form. I think he's someone who should be that number 2 to Stefan, and maybe if he can again just get that consistent playing time, maybe he can show us that he can actually challenge Stefan for that number 1 spot. So. Yeah, Pat, I think, do you have anything else to add on Ethan?
No, I mean, I'm just glad we were able to talk about him again, Austin, to be honest. So just hopefully, he goes on to a new club and gets some consistent starts and people appreciate his talent. And again, like you said, push Stefan, and we need some of that competition, that healthy competition for the goalkeepers. I
couldn't say it better myself. So with that, we are done with our transfer segment of our episode today. So now let's head over to Quick Kicks.
All right, guys. As much as I love talking about these transfers and Ethan Horvath, I know we haven't talked about in a while, and just all the excitement going on, I know it's my favorite time of the show. I know it's Austin's, and I hope it's yours as well. It's none other than Quick Kicks.
So you could test Duane Miller. It's Altidore over the wall!
All right, guys, and to start off Quick Kicks, we're heading over to Denmark with the Hobros for an exciting and dramatic first leg relegation playoff. So, again, Christian Cappis and Emmanuel Sabbi both started the game. Sabbi played 70 and Cappis started and went the full 90. An unfortunate first leg 2-1 loss to Lyngby. So hopefully the Hobros can get it together, Austin, survive relegation once again.
Come on, Hobros, you got it. You did it last year. You can do it again. And then moving over to England, we have Cameron Carter-Vickers. So Cameron started and played 90 minutes in Luton's 2-0 win this weekend. So congrats to Cameron.
Nice, Austin. And heading over to the championship with Duane Holmes. Unfortunate loss for Derby against Brentford. And, towards the end of the half, Holmes picked up an injury, so he's limping off. So fingers crossed that he recovers and he's okay, because he's had some tough injury problems in the past.
Yeah, definitely disappointing to see. And moving over to Italy, we have Andrija Novakovich. So Andrija actually took part in 2 games this week, playing the first 45 minutes in a 2-0 loss to Empoli. And then over the weekend, he actually started and played 68 minutes in a 2-2 draw. So good to see him consistently getting on the pitch for Frosinone.
Nice for Andrija. And heading over to Austria with Erik Palmer-Brown in Austria Vienna. So they, interesting, Austin, where EPB started and played the full 90, but it was 3-2 loss to Hartberg. And so that was the first leg, the Austria Europa League finals. So again, they have that second leg coming up, and hopefully they can get some points and redeem it. And that'd be exciting to see, but a tough first leg for them. Okay.
And moving on to our final segment today, we have a few young Yaz, and the first 2 have made long-awaited moves, and the first name would be Kobe Hernandez-Foster. So Kobe is an 18-year-old left back from the Los Angeles Galaxy Academy, also a former US U17 player, and is really just a fantastic prospect at left back. Also takes free kicks, has a great left foot, and just, yeah, Pat, he's a brute. He's a small player. He's someone who has, good size nonetheless, and also, good speed too. He likes to get up and down the wing. So really excited to see what he can do in Germany. He'll start off with Wolfsburg's U19s, so he'll follow the same path as, Ulianes did, making the move over to Germany. And then the other player that's moving to Wolfsburg is Bryang Kayo. So Bryang is a 17-year-old who will be turning 18 later this month. Formerly of the DC United Academy, made the move to Orange County SC to get some playing time before moving abroad. But, Pat, he's another, center mid who has good size for his age. And, I think he's just got a great blend of attributes, Pat. He's got a lot of, physicality and athleticism, but also a good amount of touch on the ball as well. So I think the sky is really the limit for both of these players, but for Bryang especially. And, you know, we've seen him get called up to the USMNT in January. So, you know, he's kind of getting ushered along a little bit quicker. And we also found out, you know, this week that he'll be starting off with Wolfsburg too, which is kind of a level up from their U19s. So awesome. That could give him the opportunity to play with a few other American players like Michael Edwards and Ulianes next year. So congrats to both of these players, and exciting to see what the future holds for them.
Yeah, we got some players certainly making moves. A lot of the young, you know, players in that next class and the kind of the different age group and the next generation kind of coming up. So really excited for you know, Bryang there and Kobe Hernandez-Foster. So it'd be great to see, Austin. So again, another young guy I want to touch on is Evan Rotundo, who, you know, made an exciting move. He came from the San Diego Surf there out west in Cali. So over to Schalke America to join that group with the U17. So a really exciting, dynamic attacking midfielder who, you know, has had some involvement with the U15s and the U17s with the U.S. going up. He was on trial, I believe, a few other clubs that you mentioned, and ultimately landed with Schalke. So exciting to kind of see where he goes.
So that's it for today's episode, guys. Make sure you like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel down below.
And don't forget to check out that social media, Twitter, Instagram. We're always putting out content for you guys, and, you know, some exciting new graphics and images going on thanks to Austin. So, you know, we're always providing you that content.
Transfer season too. So, you know, you got to stay updated on all the transfers that occur this summer for our players. So, you know, Pat, with that being said, I think, you know, there's only one thing left to be said this episode. I think one day, the USMNT, as crazy as it sounds right now in this period we're in, and, you know, what's happened recently, but one day we will win the World Cup.